It was very exciting and terrifying at the same time because I was the one coming into a relationship where the person was already married. So that there was a lot of fear around stepping on people's toes. There's so many questions and stuff that comes up in the beginning because you have to think completely differently from how we've all been taught our entire lives because everything is so mononormative.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 368. We're Finn and Emma, and today we're bringing you a conversation with Rebecca and David. Rebecca and David are part of a polycule with Jason and Christy. We talked to all four of them back on episode 143 back in 2020, so quite a long time ago. And in a few weeks, we're going to be giving you an episode talking to all four of them again. But before that, we've been giving you some updates and stories around the different dyads in this polycule. So last week, David and Christy were on the podcast. Today is David and Rebecca. Next week will be Jason and Christy. And then again in 2 weeks, we'll have all four of them back on. So this is super exciting.
We're getting deep.
Yes.
We're getting deep with these four. And
yes.
It's been amazing. I will just say we have knowledge you don't because we've already done the interviews, but it's been amazing getting the updates of all the different dyads and how each of their relationships have developed. And then we get to talk to all four of them again to see how things have changed since the last time we talked to them all, and it's just amazing. So we're really excited about this, and we're really excited about today and our conversation with David and Rebecca, which I want to be clear, with all of these interviews, they are standalone. You don't need to have listened to the other ones for these conversations to be meaningful, impactful, and powerful, but you will get a lot out of the other conversations as well.
Yes, yes, you will.
Get yourself listening, but you don't have to stop here and feel like you're going to miss out on a whole bunch. So we'll catch you up.
Yes.
So this is an amazing conversation today with Rebecca and David. They've been together about 6 years, and a lot of their partnership has been developed and grown while inside of not just being in relationships with others, but living together as a house of 4 or actually more adults. And so, they talk a lot about that today.
Yes, as you'll see, they do talk about living with 5 adults. And just to be clear, that 5th adult is Brandy, who is Christy's sister. We just want to make that clear up front. And yeah, they talk us through this beautiful journey of their relationship journey.
Yeah, it's incredible today. And one other quick thing that we wanted to tell you, maybe just a light disclaimer / potential trigger warning. Part of David and Rebecca's dynamic is a kink element that they bring in. And about 10 minutes or so into the conversation, they talk about their first date and how it resulted in some bruising on Rebecca's body. And so if that's something you're very sensitive to, just be aware that when they start talking about the first date, and they set it up so you're not going to be surprised, there'll be a point where Rebecca's like, well, let's dig into it right now. So when you hear that, if this is not something you want to hear about, you can skip about a minute or two ahead. You won't miss anything else, and it doesn't come up again later. So it's pretty mild, but we didn't want anyone to be surprised.
Yes. And if you're interested in listening to all of the other episodes that this polycule has been on, they will be linked in the podcast show notes, so don't worry.
Do not worry at all. And so for anybody who is a premium subscriber, we're going to stop talking at you and get right into this amazing conversation with David and Rebecca. And for the rest of you, we have a few quick announcements before we do.
If you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front and jump right into the interview. To sign up for only a couple bucks a month, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and scroll down on the homepage. And also, don't worry, we also shout out important dates that we want you to know about in the outros. So by skipping these intros and signing up for the premium subscription, you won't miss those.
And those specific dates, those exciting dates that we don't want you to miss out on, are things like our next virtual speed friending, which is coming up on December 14th. We actually just had one this past week. It was amazing. We had a great time, got some new community members, which we'll talk about our community in a second. But yeah, it was a great time, and we'd love to have you join our next one. It'll be the last one of the year, and then we'll be back in January. Again, that date is December 14th.
And these are open to anyone. You just must be open-minded and respectful. Go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the events tab or at the banner at the top of the page to sign up.
You can't miss it.
No.
Yeah, the way these events work is we bring everybody together in Zoom. We will put you into small Zoom breakout rooms. We'll ask a question, a fun, thought-provoking question to get the conversation started. You'll have about 8 minutes to talk with your group about it. Then we'll scramble the rooms, ask a new question, and you do this over and over for about 2 hours. And you have a good time, or at least we hope you do.
Yes.
And just one more reminder, you can sign up for that with the banner on our website or under the events tab at normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
While you're over on our website, we encourage you to go and check out the community tab. There you can learn more about our virtual community and sign up and join us and over 300 people in an amazing space, if we do say so ourselves. People are in there supporting each other every single day. And we also host monthly Zoom community discussion calls too. We would love, love, love to have you come join us. Sign up on the community tab of our website.
Yeah, one of our whole missions with this podcast and the work we do is to help you all find one another and feel less alone. And the virtual speed friending and the community are two of our favorite ways that we do this. And I just wanted to maybe reiterate what Emma said, that the virtual speed friendings are open to anybody and everybody. And then we also have this community, which is a bit more of a closed container it's an ongoing space for support and community building and finding your people. And so what's really neat about these two events is a lot of times people come to the virtual speed friendings and then wind up in our community, because actually a lot of the people on the speed friendings
are part of the community.
And so it's the speed friending is a great way to kind of get a flavor of the community. But again, as Emma said, it's only $5 a month to join the community. So we'd love to have you check it out. And I just thought I would kind of explain how we've tied those two together over the last few years. And it's just been amazing to see how everybody comes together.
Yes.
And speaking of coming together, if you're out meeting people in the real world and, coming together, we would highly recommend that you get tested for STIs so you know your sexual health status, so you can talk to all of your partners. And the service that Emma and I use to get tested is called stdcheck.com. We've used it for years and we absolutely love it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be telling you about it. It is incredibly simple to use. It's fast and it's affordable. When you use the links on our website, you save $10, which brings the cost of a 10-panel test down to only $129. And that also helps support the podcast and support us. So thank you so much for using the links over on our resources tab or in your podcast player down below. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We also wanted to remind you to send us a voicemail or an email on the Contact Us page of our website. We would love to hear from you. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you have any questions or comments for us, please reach out and let us know. And really quickly, before we jump into the interview, we have one last announcement. We know the holidays are coming up, and if you're looking for a special gift of some sort, we have new shirts available for sale on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Scroll down on the homepage. They say, "Be kind, humaning is hard." And they're t-shirts, sweatshirts, tank tops, all sorts of different things. Go and check them out.
And with that, we're going to jump right into the interview here with Rebecca and David. Well, welcome back to the podcast, David and Rebecca. You've, I guess, technically been on an episode together as part of the four-way conversation we had back on episode 142. And you've each been, Rebecca, you were on by yourself on episode 143. David, you've been on here a whole bunch of times.
It might have been the reverse. I think I just wrote them down wrong.
You did.
Well,
Yeah, I think mine was 142, and then
Yeah, as I'm looking that, I
that makes a lot more sense.
yeah, I messed up.
Well, they're correct in the show notes, and we're not going to go back and fix that because I'm far too lazy.
That was my
do
mistake
that.
on writing them down.
So nevertheless, you've both been here before. We're excited to have you back, and we're excited to hear the story of David and Rebecca. So welcome.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk with you guys.
Likewise. Well, maybe for anybody who hasn't gone back and listened to whatever the hell episodes you were on, let's
143.
would each of you be just, in 30 seconds or so, introduce yourself and maybe what brought your quick non-monogamy background, and then we're going to go back to the beginning of your partnership and talk about how it grew inside of the ecosystem that it did.
Sure. I'll start. So I'm Rebecca, and my non-monogamy adventure started with Tinder when I swiped right on this guy, David, here. So it's all kind of been since meeting David. Definitely have different experiences over the last couple of years with post-COVID worlds and everything else. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's been an eventful few years for sure. I'm David. I've been actively polyamorous since like 2015, and started with my wife Christy, stumbling through all the different things. You can listen to the other podcasts to get those stories. And then I saw this hottie on Tinder, and it was like, I'll swipe right on that. And here we are.
And then here you are.
And here you are a few years later.
Yeah.
Not a single bump in the road.
No.
Everything's been really easy and smooth.
Everything since 2019's been smooth.
No important events have happened.
Excellent. Well, then it was great talking to you both. Go do something interesting. Well, yeah.
I'm curious, so you both swipe on each other on Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
And David, you are familiar, you have been practicing polyamory. You currently, at that time, you were married, and then this was a new relationship. Rebecca, you're coming in brand new. How did those first early days go together?
I remember as soon as I swiped right, I got a message from David, and that was really cool. And it was a dad joke, which was cute. It definitely set him apart.
When does a joke become a dad joke? When the punchline becomes apparent. That's the proper level of laugh.
I still kept talking.
I guess we'll be living with you soon, David.
We got room.
But so I just when I swiped right and we matched and he messaged me, that's kind of generally when in online dating, that's when I actually read someone's profile and really try.
And if I asked you if you had read the profile?
I don't remember.
Pretty sure I asked
yeah.
the profile.
But I tend not to, or at least at that point, I didn't always read them before I swiped. And then just when someone matched, then I would look and see.
Yeah.
And,
you don't want to invest too much time.
Right. Yeah.
It's Tinder.
Yeah. It's Tinder. Yeah. So I just recall reading his profile, and he said he was polyamorous and part of the kink community. And really, at that point, had no idea what poly was. Even non-monogamy as a generalized term was not something that I really had thought much about, not for myself, not for other people. It just wasn't in my realm at that time. So I looked into it and was like, I'm going to give this a shot. And for me, I think the first couple weeks of us talking was a lot of just questions and asking all the different scenarios that I could think of, both with kink and non-monogamy. And it was kind of I don't like to play the game of testing someone, but in a way it was kind of testing David, because the more intrusive questions I would ask, he was even more willing to answer. So he never shied away from answering something, and he was constantly pushing me to read stuff that wasn't information from him. Mm-hmm. And so that just kind of made me fall even harder, because he was so look up your own info. Don't just learn from me by myself.
Yeah.
No.
The best dating device I have for anybody out there, any male out there, any male presenting guy out there, is just don't be a douchebag. All of those things that she described as being interesting or different was just me not being a jerk. Because I've seen the way Tinder and dating apps are for women, and all you have to do to stand out is not be a douchebag.
Yeah. But you were just showing your character so much too.
That was the goal.
Because that is your character. So yeah. It was very exciting and terrifying at the same time, because I was the one coming into a relationship where the person was already married. So that there was a lot of fear around stepping on people's toes, putting my foot in my mouth, which I'm really good at. So there was just a lot of, there's so many questions and stuff that comes up in the beginning, because you have to think completely differently from how we've all been taught our entire lives, because everything is so mononormative.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I swiped right immediately, and then got super excited when she matched with me. Pretty sure I'm the one that swiped right first. Mm-hmm. That was really my first. My relationship with Rebecca was really my first time getting into a serious relationship, something that was more than just a date or two, with somebody who was completely new to everything. And I felt really responsible for that. It also didn't help that after our first date, I was pretty sure she was going to call the cops on me. But
we'll go back to that.
We need to revisit this.
But I've personally witnessed a lot of different times of the experienced person using that experience as leverage for taking advantage of the inexperienced person. And while I am a sadist, the wonderful thing about kink is it allows me to do that consensually and ethically. And I was very careful about that, because I wanted to make sure that she wasn't just getting information from me, that she was getting information from the community at large and from other books and from other sources, because grooming is not great no matter who you're talking to.
And I mean, from what I've seen over the last couple of years, both non-monogamy and kink stuff can be full of predators. People posing as being ethically non-monogamy or non-monogamous, and then that's not true, or all that stuff. So it was just, I don't know, I felt very safe with David because of how much he wasn't shying away from answering, and sent me multiple articles on polyamory and loving multiple people, and it just, everything he sent was just really nailing it into me of this was the answer to the question I didn't know I wasn't asking.
That was also part of the first date, was really nailing it into her.
Sure.
We're coming back to the cops, David. We're coming back to that.
A week. Let's go over that story.
So how long did we talk before we went on our first date?
Probably a week, but it was a lot of talking. We probably started talking at the end of the week, 1 week, and then we had a first date probably a week later.
So a Friday to Friday kind of deal.
Yeah. And, we had talked a lot about kink stuff and being a sadist and a masochist. And so we had had a lot of pre-discussion of what would be allowed at the date or post date or whatever.
There was negotiation.
Yeah. So proper negotiating of physical connection. And so we met for coffee, had a lovely time, and ended up going back to my house and had an even lovelier time.
And we did. We had a great time. We had a lot of fun, kinky sex that was really amped up by the caffeine. And one of the things we had talked about doing, and one thing she wanted, was some breast torture, some smacking, some hitting on the breasts, right? And I did. I'm a big guy. I was a bigger guy back then. The next day, she sent me a picture of her left breast.
Just say what the comment was.
No, I'll get there. The left breast completely purple. And Rebecca has an amazing set. So there's a lot of purple. And she sent the picture, and the phrase that was below it was, "Look what you did."
I wasn't trying to.
No other context.
But I was like, look what you did.
And I heard, "Look what you did." I'm like, "I'm going to jail."
It was like the bruise bigger than the size of a baseball.
It was a lot.
Pretty
and it was
significant
dark purple.
bruise. And it's also
We're sad now because she doesn't bruise that way anymore.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that, anyone who's in kink knows that your body kind of gets used to the beatings. And so you don't bruise the same way in the beginning once you're like more experienced. So that has never happened again, unfortunately.
Yeah. The capillaries, I guess, pull back from the edge of the skin, so you bruise less and less easy. Same thing happens with like kickboxers kicking a post to toughen their shins, kind of deal. Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, that message with that picture, he was like, "I'm going to go to prison." I'm there.
I think
she got photographic evidence.
I think my response was something along the lines of, and how do you feel about that? You got to walk that line. Like, I can't incriminate myself with this response. But
Right. Well, so Rebecca, had you done anything in the kink world before sort of this, or was this like, I'm new to kink, I'm new to polyamory, and I'm jumping into dating on Tinder too?
Yeah. So, I have been a longtime reader of like erotic novels and stuff. So I had read books with kink in him since I was 18. So I wasn't new to it in terms of like knowledge base or knowing that it was there somewhere out in the world, but I never knew how to find it. And so David coming along was just like the first option that I had. And I was like, well, I'm jumping on board because because he was a very safe person too. But I was so excited that someone was in the kink community in San Diego. We were able to do stuff. We were able to do that. So,
yeah.
That was your gateway to exploration, and
my gateway drug.
and so then, what takes you to like from date one? David avoids prison, which is amazing.
Yeah,
but now you're into a new type of relationship dynamic. And David, this is also your first time doing this with somebody who's brand new to it. It sounds like new to kink, more or less. Non-monogamy for sure.
Yeah.
How do you two move forward from there?
Right before a global.
But they don't know that's coming.
No, I know.
I didn't know that was coming.
Oh man! So we got 1 year, and we did a lot in that year.
It was a lot.
I mean,
was it 2018 or 2019? 2019 we got together. So the progression, for the most part, was that of regular dating, right? Like, we would go on dates, we'd spend nights together. I was working nights at the time. And so, like, there was a lot of times I'd come see her before work, and then she'd like drop me off at work because me and Christy only had one vehicle at the time. Lots of stuff like that.
Eat for breakfast when he got off work in the morning.
Mm-hmm. So most of the relationship progression on my side was regular relationship progression, with the exception of the added responsibility of being not only the experienced person when it comes to kink and poly, but being the dominant in the relationship. And so my philosophy moving forward was to err on the side of caution and err on the side of giving all the information, even if that meant I handed off some information that would make her not want me or whatever. It was better to figure that stuff out than to try to steer things to create something to make it just what I wanted.
Yeah.
That was the big parts on my side.
Yeah. And I think, so we got together in February of 19, and I met Christy in March. So I met her only a few weeks into the relationship, and and actually Jason as well, because I met them, I think, on the same day at the meetups that David was hosting at the time. And so that was nice too, because the way that the polyamory had been presented to me was the kitchen table poly idea of like everybody kind of knowing each other and hanging out and not having it weird between like metamorphs. And so meeting Christy so early on was actually really nice for me because it got it out of the way. And it was like, okay, now I know for sure she's aware that I exist and she's okay with it. And we're all on the up and up. But also that like then I could start forging that relationship with Christy as like another partner of David's, because then we could do stuff for David together. We could go to dinner together with David for his birthday. So that first year being in 2019 was really nice because we did a lot of stuff that was David, Christy, and I, or the four of us, Christy, Jason, and David and I. And so there was a lot of time we just spent together building all of our friendships and all the interlocking relationships that there are now.
It helped that we were in San Diego because the beach is a really easy place to go hang out. Everyone shows up with a car and everyone can leave whenever they want, right? So we got a lot of time together. And it also helped that Christy was, at the same time I was falling head over heels for Rebecca, Christy was falling head over heels for Jason. And that helped.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I've learned that can make things hard is if one person's dating life is more active than the other person's dating life, it can create a imbalance in the pressures or the pull, the places you're pulled to. Because Christy was falling head over heels for Jason at the time that I was falling head over heels for Rebecca, I had a lot of extra time because she was off spending time with Jason and I was off spending time with Rebecca. Then the four of us would come together and hang out. Then me and Christy would hang out. It gave a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious in there, Rebecca, and I appreciate you both. And I will say, it's really tempting to dive into the questions, David, about, well, how did you manage to, you and Christy are both in NRE with two different people and all of that, but we had a different episode where we talked about a lot of that. So I'm gonna refrain from that and not ignore you, but I had a question for Rebecca about this, which is you've expressed a lot of like, I was worried about stepping on toes. I wanted to make sure that Christy knew I existed. And it was, I hear like a lot of the concern that like, I hope this is okay with her and with the whole ecosystem. But I'm curious for yourself, were you like, this is your first time jumping in being like, now the person that I'm in NRE with is going home to his wife every night. Like how are you doing with like the processing of this new dynamic for you as you're jumping into this new relationship?
Yeah. It's a hard thing to answer because it's easy and it's not, is that it felt just so natural and normal to me. David and I talked so much about the different relationships. We talked about, the communication level that we had, especially in the beginning, was so high that I guess one fear that people have is like, okay, well, am I going to get treated like I'm not as important? And I have never in 5 years felt like I've less important than Christy. And that was always how it was portrayed to me. And so it was actually really easy because David always communicated like, hey, I'm going to be with Christy tonight. I may not be talking as much, or he would just text like normal. Like there was always so much communication wrapped around the times where he would be less available that I never felt a loss there. I never felt like, oh, now I'm kind of off on this little island by myself and I am just waiting for him to come back. It never felt like that to me. It's always felt super safe. Yeah, am I rambling now?
No, you're not rambling at all. I was just realizing that's true. You might not have ever felt that way with Christy, but you have felt that way. You felt that way when I started dating Sing.
Yeah. So when I was the new person, I didn't feel that way. When David started dating his older partner, Sin, and to an extent, his newest partner, T, there was the fear of like being less important, but there was nothing, no examples to back it up because he's just not like that. So even when I did have that fear, it really,
Your memory has gotten better. Or I've gotten better in your memory is probably better to say. There were absolutely times I screwed it up. And there were times when I would go see a new partner and then not communicate at all from the time I got there, with the exception of, hey, I'm here safe, to, hey, I'm on my way home. No communication. And that did cause some issues sometimes for the longer weekends.
But that wasn't, yes, that does cause issues in itself. But that didn't make me feel like our relationship was in jeopardy.
Well, no.
Because you were with someone. It wasn't because you were with the other person. It was because the communication got severed a little bit.
That's the part I was talking about. Yeah.
So I feel like it's not a good answer because I feel like it was just really natural to me. And I don't think that that's the standard experience. But I felt so comforted by the dynamic because of how David had communicated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's a perfect answer because it's your experience. So that's all we're going for here.
It was fine.
Yeah. and it also sounds like it helped, like that whole time you got to meet Christy, you met Jason, you got to hang out all together. You were building those connections as well. And so that it wasn't just like, you weren't existing in the two of you in this black box, kind of like there was so much more around it all and communication around it all, and not just communication, but actually like experiences together that I imagine helped all of that too.
Yeah. I think the other thing that just stuck out to me, Rebecca, and I have to imagine this resonated with a lot of people because we've heard a lot of people say this, which is when I was the new person coming into an existing partnership, that was a whole lot easier because there was sort of, I think it sets a little bit of a different expectation. Like, even if you want to be an equal or, and there's now hierarchy, all of those things, right? I think it's easier to frame it coming in and saying, okay, well, they're married, we're in a new relationship. So there is just something different about that, right? And then when you're the existing, I have, more tenure in the relationship and all of a sudden there's somebody new, that's more threatening, I think, in a lot of ways.
I agree. It is. Yeah. And, luckily, I don't feel like David's a horrible choice of women. Like he picks really good people. And, like with T, it's I don't feel that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm constantly being reassured that, it's the relationship is not in jeopardy because of another person. Like if the relationship is in jeopardy, it's because of us, not a third party or a fourth party or whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to note that as the experienced person, as the one who has done this and had partners and had other partners and had partners who had partners, and the first time she went on a date, I was a nervous wreck. I struggled. I had a lot of I had to process my envy and my jealousy and I was the one who introduced her to all of these things and I did all of these things. And what if he does any of these things even as good as I did them? Then I'm less special. So I still had all of those things too.
Yeah.
And I think what's important to note is that those feelings almost always come up. At least for me, they do. Just thinking about T dating, I have all that same round of emotions. And thinking about, and every time Rebecca starts a new partnership, I have to stop and process. That's easier because the more times you do something, the easier it becomes. So I've laid the groundwork, but I still have to go, no, everything's fine. I am still who I am to her, regardless of whatever this other person becomes for her, I will still be me.
Yeah.
I think that it's really important for people to remember that it's all normal feelings. Mm-hmm. Don't you feel that way when your parents give your sibling way more attention than you all of a sudden for whatever reason. Like,
No, I'm the oldest.
but like, you want it's a normal feeling, and I think what helped get us through the hardest times that we've had is the communication around it. So we just talk about it.
Mhm.
Are you feeling less important? What things did I do that made you feel that way? How can we reassure that that's not how things are?
Yeah.
The communication around things is just so key with dating other people.
Yeah, I love that you jumped in there, David, and said that, like, even now, being close to a decade into it, you live in a household of.
It's okay.
Didn't mean to age you there.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. That was back for the half a decade comment.
But that even now, at this stage of the journey for you, it's still hard at times, and I think that's just really human. And when you're in that, like you were saying, Rebecca, the communication of like, okay, you're feeling this way, let's understand it, how can we work with it, rather than like, you shouldn't be feeling that way, I gave you 6 hours of attention and I only gave them 3 hours of attention, and why are you and you can start going down this, like, let's argue about how you're feeling and why you're feeling it versus okay, you're feeling it.
Right. Well, and then how do you quantify importance of time together?
Yep.
So David and I have an hour together after bed and putting the baby down and all these things, that sometimes that 1 hour we get is way more than the next day when we see each other all day long. So like, you can't, it's so hard to, like, if you start tracking minute to minute and how important it is and what you got out of it, and like, you're just going to find yourself constantly in a deficit. Like, it's just not.
Yeah.
You lose all context for what that time meant.
It's never apples to apples.
It's about quality and like, and nurturing that relationship and with the things that needs to be nurtured with.
Right.
Yeah.
It's balance.
Yeah.
That's been my mantra in my head so much over this past year or two, is trying to find that balance between feeling free and being in a house with a full polycule, and trying to find that balance between, am I spending the time where I want to be spending it? Because that's the other thing. Especially if you're the partner that has more partners. So like right now, I have more partners than either Rebecca or T does. And so I can get lost in the, am I making sure everybody else is getting everything they need? And then I'll forget to ask, well, where do I want to be this weekend? Like, not where does the schedule say I need to be, but where do I actually want to be this weekend?
What does the Google Calendar tell you you're doing?
Yeah. To learn for the Google Calendar to be the servant and not the master.
That you can change it.
You can change it. It is not, contrary to popular belief, it is not stone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm curious, in this journey for you two, Rebecca, when did you start doing the poly thing on your side? I'm going to start dating now. I mean, I would argue, even if you never had another partner, you're just as polyamorous. You're in the dynamic. So I didn't mean to like minimize it that way.
Oh, no. I don't feel like that at all. And I'm very much like, I don't want to go back. That's not something I want in my life. If David was the only other person I was married to, dating, had something serious with for the rest of my life, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But I'd still probably casually meet and date people on the side, because it's just, the freedom is so lovely. And I'm sorry, I totally forgot what the original question was.
When did you start dating?
Oh, when did I start dating? Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much. So in that first year, we went to, a number of socials, poly socials and kink events. And I met a bunch of people that I spent time with, but didn't really date at all. So I don't actually think I really had another serious partner until about 9 months ago. which is actually like quite a long time since starting the poly journey. But with COVID and like the hardcore lockdown that we did for our household, and then now we've moved to, the middle of the country. So now we're 4 states away and we don't know as many people. But I met a lovely person last year when we joined the kink club that's in this town. And him and I started dating in November. We did recently break up, but that was the biggest like relationship that I've had since dating David. And it was very hard for me at first because I was like, all of a sudden I felt like everything I had to do was doubled. The good morning text, the good night text, the checking in, and it is doubled. So you have to do more of that when you're dating multiple people. And it was definitely overwhelming for me at first. I'm like, I don't know if I can manage this because it's a whole other person that you're interacting with. And but it was lovely. I think I got used to it. And I'm constantly trying to be aware of my time with each of the people, and making sure that David's needs are getting met and his needs were getting met as well. But over, I guess in like 2022, I dated a little bit very casually, but actual relationship was last November. Yeah. So quite a while. But I definitely have never felt rushed because it's my choice and I want to do it when I meet the right person. And finally the right person came along to have that relationship with. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful to have the freedom to do it without the pressure or this like feeling of like, I have to do it. I have to keep up. But like, hey, I can if I want to, but I'm also really feeling good about where I'm at.
Right. Yeah. And the nice thing too was that he was also polyamorous with his wife, and they had a heavier kink dynamic than David and I do. And so the amount of time that he had free really matched my free time. And so we matched like what we could actually provide to each other, because I'm like, we bought a house together with our polycule, we're family, and I can't see that changing for the foreseeable future, and I don't want it to change. So like that really does limit what I can offer someone else. Mm-hmm. So it was nice to meet someone who was in a similar position with how much they could offer me as well. Mm-hmm. And that really worked out for us, for the time that we were dating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say, technically breakup is the right term, right? But I feel like you guys really successfully have done the transition from romantic sexual partners to platonic partners.
Yes.
Because like they were just here for my birthday, and it was a great time, and it was it would have been sad if they had not been here.
Yeah. So him and his wife came 2 weekends ago for birthday parties for Jason and David, and so we transitioned is a good word, because breakup is so negative, but he's definitely someone that I would want in my life forever, because he's a great human and very smart and just really caring. So it was really nice to be able to we're still in the middle of the transition and trying to find our steps a little bit, but it's really nice to be able to have that as an option too, that polyamory relationships, when they end, don't tend to end in the same way as monogamous relationships. Like there tends to be a little bit more friendship happening after the fact, because it's like you just realize how much relationships come and go, and some are longer and some aren't.
Or they explode spectacularly.
That's also a possibility.
Yeah. You have more of those stories.
Yeah, 'cause I have a type, and that type can be explosive. It's and so if you're dating a strong, willful, reactive woman, and things go badly, and the things can go real badly, but also when things go right, they go amazing.
Yes.
When they decide that they're going to turn the wheel to make things work.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah. I think too, there's just this like this is something Emma and I have talked about quite a bit, is we tend to find the people who fit into our puzzle piece, and that's not always a healthy fit, right? Like sometimes we fit like
The shape
like
fix, but the picture doesn't match.
like it's gasoline and matches, they go together really well if what you're looking to do is make a giant fire.
Yeah.
But if what you're looking to do is have a nice little controlled burn, that's not really a good option. So it's just, I think there's so much in there, and there's so much that we all carry about how much have we each healed? What are we carrying around, and how does everybody's trauma fit into everybody's trauma? Like it's a fun.
Does my baggage match your baggage?
Yeah. Our baggage makes each other baggage worse. That's excellent. That's a fun time.
That's not good. Yeah, no, I think I've even used that as a pickup line once or twice. It never worked, but like, hey, do you want to stick our baggage together and see if it's a matching set?
Why didn't it work?
I don't know.
Didn't that work?
I was gonna say, what happened with that one?
Well, typically the response was just no.
Baggage did not.
Because I sound like I'm waving all my red flags.
Yeah.
I like to be when I make that joke. I don't know.
more data required.
Yeah. I'm curious kind of how the transition went for you and for your relationship, how you went from dating that first year, getting to know each other, moving in together in a polycule with a lockdown, and then moving to another state and buying a house together with a whole polycule.
Is it polyamory wasn't enough of a deviation from the norm? Let's do it in a pandemic.
We don't like to do anything the easy way.
You got to stack things on top of each other to get those extra bonuses.
So in that first year of dating, David, Christy, and I had talked / fantasized a lot about living together. And it had started off as like, oh yeah, we'll look like in a year and a half. And then it turned into like, oh, we'll look, maybe in like a year. And then it turned into
the lease is coming up to an end. Why start it up when we have an extra room?
Right. And so first it went to that. So we had decided to, move all in, the three of us, and then COVID happened. So Jason moved in, and you can hear all that on the other podcast. So then post serious lockdown, people can get vaccines and stuff. As a household, we had discussed a lot about like wanting to buy a house, wanting to have a place that was our own, where we didn't have a landlord, didn't have people telling us what to do. And we wanted space. Christy and I wanted space for a garden. We wanted just land, property, space between our house and the next person's house. And so we had talked a lot about moving to the Pacific Northwest,
which is where most of our people migrate to.
Yes. That's very common. And
from San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we had just always talked about wanting to have a house. And to put it into perspective, like the level of which we have discussed these things is that since 2019, we've lived in 5 houses together. And every time we looked for a new place, we would sit down as a household, write down the wants we had, the needs we had for the house.
Jason would project manage it.
Jason project managed the hell out of writing a list of what we want to feel in our new house. So like we've put in some serious work into what our house and what our sanctuary needs to feel like. And so when we started talking about like moving to the Pacific Northwest, that was like a couple years down the road kind of thing. And then David's work was going to open a workshop in Colorado. So we're like,
a distribution center.
Colorado might be a good place too. It's pretty similar to the Pacific Northwest. I know Christy and I really cared about season, because San Diego is amazing, but has one season, except for like the 3 days.
It's called amazing. That's the season.
And yes, exactly.
Yeah, the weather is fantastic.
So
It's like summer, but it lasts 12 years or 12 months. 12 months.
Exactly. So we ended up kind of just looking at Colorado and around where they might have done it. And
Yeah. So my work said we're going to be opening a distribution center and we would like you to relocate to Colorado for this. And so I went back to the house because we had been talking about moving and we'd been talking about the Pacific Northwest. And I asked, and I brought it up and was like, dude, how do we feel about moving to Colorado? And everyone was like, yeah, well, that sounds good. That it's a purple state, which was important to us because if it's too far one way or the other, you get the same thing. And we knew it'd be just exponentially cheaper than San Diego. So we started looking. And Christy and Jason came out at one point to...
At the time, Jason's work was also in the same town that they were going to do the workshop or the distribution center.
Yeah, it was the distribution center was going to be outside Denver. Jason's work was outside Denver
as well. So Jason was coming to Denver to visit for a work thing. And so Christy and Jason were like, why don't we look at some houses while we're here? So project manager that Jason is, we were on Zillow and created spreadsheets and checklists and what do we want in our house?
Our realtor loved us.
Oh my gosh. We looked at so many houses online to figure out, okay, how far from Denver is it? Okay, who can work from home if they move to Colorado from San Diego? What can we get for there? What is our budget? And the nice thing was that Jason, when he moved in with us during COVID, he had a condo. So he sold his condo because we ended up living together. So, we had a little nest egg for the down payment, which was great. But yeah, so Christy and Jason came out to Colorado and looked at 5 or 6 houses. Some of them, Christy was like, I'm not even sending you the videos because of the no. It's just going to be a no. But found the house that we're in now and was like, this is a great house. It's has good bones. It's relatively new built. I think at the end of the 90s it was built. It's not super old yet.
You don't want to do that math.
No, we don't need to talk about that. So they came back. They came home a couple days later, and we were all like, "Let's do it."
We sent in an offer.
Sent an offer.
It got accepted. And as soon as we were under contract, I got notified by my work that we weren't going to be opening a distribution center in the area.
Excellent.
Well, guess what? I'm relocating.
So I went down and I sat down with my boss and I went, so we talked last month and you were like, yes, 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 and yes. So we put an offer in on the house and we're closing on it. So I guess I'm shifting to remote work because the reason we got told no is because we got acquired by a much larger company, one of the big companies, and they already had a distribution center. So I was going to be working in San Diego for a distribution center that was somewhere in the south.
So the remote work wouldn't matter.
So
anyway.
Remote, I would still be doing all my work via laptop. So we made it work. And so I get to work from home as a logistics person, which is unheard of because usually they want you where the things are happening. And we got this amazing place and all of this, even the stuff that sounds, like happenstance, like, hey, we're going to relocate. No, we're not going to relocate. All of that was made possible by the fact, and being able to roll with those changes was made possible by the fact that we live this way, that we live a poly lifestyle, that it wasn't just me and Rebecca trying to make it work. Mm-hmm. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm amazed that people actually get houses purchased because of how much back and forth there is. I had no idea. And our realtor was like, you guys are the most organized people we have ever done. I wish every client was like you, because we literally were like, we would get an email. One of us would get an email. We would talk in our group chat. What do we feel about this? Are these issues? Nope, we're good. Cool. Someone give her a thumbs up. We were just rapid firing back, pinging everything back to the homeowners. And so we ended up, we closed on the house, I think November 27th or 30th of 22. And then Christy and Jason moved out literally like within a week.
They were out here for December of 22 in Colorado, and that was when the cyclone bomb hit, and the temperature dropped 40 degrees in 30 minutes. Wow. And when it dropped 40 degrees, it was already at like 2.
Yeah. So they were here for like 6 weeks, and after living in a house of 6 people for 3.5 years, them being gone in the house for 6 weeks was horrible. It felt like forever to me. I was like, my family is gone. Like it was not fun, because then it was like we were at the house trying to get it ready for moving, because we were like, we're paying for movers for this trip, like across the country basically. And yeah, it was crazy. And then we finally got here in January last year. And now all 4 of us, David, Jason, and I, and then Christy's sister, we all work from home. Yeah. So that's really nice too, because we're a little bit rural. So we're able to all work at the house. And that's where, like, for David and my relationship is really interesting, because like I sit 5 feet away from him all day long, every day. So like I get to see him all the time, because Jason, David, and I kind of have an office set up together, which is actually really fun, because it's like we're coworkers, but we have nothing to bitch about over each other. Like we have office drama that has nothing to do with that.
So we're never mad at each other.
Right.
But we can have something to bitch to when so-and-so at work really dropped the ball.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because the 3 of you are working on completely different things.
Yeah. With
not even
so
related.
Like,
yeah.
I can say whatever I want to about my boss, and it'll never get back to me. Although if she hears this, then we'll have another conversation, because I'm not telling her about the interview. I'll be like, so why were you there?
I think we have bigger things to talk about.
I just want to say, like, I love the trajectory of all this, because I think there's often in the world of polyamory, there's this pinnacle fantasy that the holy grail is we want to move to a big piece of property and build a commune with our family.
Intentional living community.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
And we need at least 20 chickens, which we have 11 chickens now.
You're on your way.
We're on our way.
And we're talking about getting alpacas. Like, we're doing it. We're making it happen.
You are. And what I love about it is just, there was a piece I noticed, which is you all lived together. Like you said, you lived in 5 different houses, and you did this for a number of years before buying a house and really like maybe diving into it full on. And I just think there's probably a lot of things. And I know we're going to have the 4 of you on, so maybe this is one of those conversations we have there, which is just the amount that you learned how to be in an intentional living community together before you kind of make the quote unquote forever purchase, before you're bought in, when you're just renting and you're like, okay, well, we can just not renew the lease. That's way different than I've got a 30-year mortgage with these people.
It absolutely feels like we did a lot of stress testing first.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there was some super stressful times. I mean, we lived in a 1,000 square foot house during the pandemic with 5 adults and a teenager.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice because like we didn't just get from point A to B, but looking back on it, sometimes it feels like it was just this quick little leap. But like there was stress and growth at every single location that we lived. And they were all different. Like each house kind of had its own
theme. But this is the lesson we're learning this year.
Yeah. And you know, like COVID 2020 was rolling with it. We didn't know. I mean, no one knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I just feel like David has said this so many times, and I can't come up with a better description is that it feels like we've caught lightning in a bottle because we've put so much work into what we want our house to be. But we happen to find other adults that want exactly what we want. So we've just found this really unique group of people that are like, all right, I like me personally, I never wanted to live with other people again. I was like, I am totally down to live by myself. I will date people. It's fine that I can go home and my stuff will be exactly where I left it.
Three of the adults in the house all had that frame of mind.
Yeah. So half of us.
Over half.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like
At least half.
Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing how much work has been put into it, and also just the luck of finding each other in the way that we did. Like, I don't know, just randomly swiping right on David's picture on Tinder. Like, who knows where we were when the profile even popped up, because in San Diego, you could have your distance of people near you be like 30 miles and you're missing half the city. So like just the odds of like David and I meeting and Christy and Jason and all of us getting together and getting along so well. Like it wasn't
and working through the times we didn't get along.
Right. Because they have not been seamless. I mean, you live with 6 people in a house that's 1,100 square feet in 2020. You're going to have some fights. So,
that's good. Yes.
I mean, Christy and I had a definite time where we were not on a good page with each other. And we've come a long way since then. And I think a lot of it was my triggers hit Christy's and vice versa. And we were also really similar, but also really different. Like in the ways that we're similar, it's like mirroring. And then the ways that we're different are like opposite ends of the spectrum. So different scenarios would hit us in different ways that would cause little hiccups. And then it turned into one really big hiccup. But now we've figured out how to talk a lot better and communicate better with each other. And I mean, it's to find 3 people you want to spend 30 years with is hard. So finding 5 is a lot.
Finding one person is hard.
One person.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think I do think on the finding somebody is hard thing. I do feel like, and I feel like Finn, you touched on this earlier, is once you've got a stable base, the nice thing about dating when you're in poly or any other form of non-monogamy, I guess, is if you have that stable home base, if you have that safety net, the stakes aren't nearly as high at the start of any other dating. Like you can go date and have fun. Like if this works out, great. If it doesn't, still great, because this is fun. That only gets more complicated when it stops being a casual date. And then now you're trying to integrate somebody new into what is already established. And that's tricky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious on that sort of front, like how you two, and this isn't to like question the possibility that 2 people could build that base inside of the ecosystem you did, but how did you 2 do that, right? You weren't we're just going to move to an island by ourselves and cure the concrete. Like you're doing it as you're dating other people, you're living together with like there was a whole lot going around you as you're building the basis of your partnership.
I would just remember a lot of discussions with David about, especially him being like, you're one of the people I want to spend forever with. I want to spend forever with you. And like, I remember when the first idea came up of like moving out of California, like next year was an option. And I was like, that's too fast for me. Like, I can't. And I just remember David and I having a lot of discussions about what we wanted for our futures and what we wanted together. And they were really lining up. David and I check in with each other probably a ridiculous amount.
Probably every day.
Every day.
Or at least most days. Most days is probably more accurate. We check in a lot. It was I think the fact that Rebecca was new helped that, because we built a habit of how is everything feeling?
Right.
How are you feeling? And we built it without having baggage already. And so we were able to fall back on that healthy pattern. Whereas with an established partner that you weren't quite as healthy with at the beginning, when you go to fall back on an established pattern, it isn't always the healthy pattern. It's the pattern you built when you weren't super healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I remember there was conversations about, well, what is it you actually want versus, oh, it's too soon. I don't want to do I don't want to do that's too soon. Okay, so what do you want? And a lot of times when either one of us were the ones going, gives me the heebie-jeebies, I don't want to do that, I don't want to think about it. When we were asked the opposing question of, well, what do you want? A lot of times the answer was, I don't know. And then so you stop and you start thinking about, so what do I actually want, as opposed to what do I think I want? And that's when we started finding places together. And it was interesting because it would be like talking with her about what we want for ourselves. And then there'd be talking with Rebecca about what we want as the bigger community. And then there's the talking with the rest of the polycule about what everybody else wants, while they're also having conversations about, well, what do we want things to look like? And that's where the lightning in the bottle part comes from, is because all of that lined up for all of us, at least well enough to make it work. Like, we've done some filing, we've done some sanding, and we've all done some shifting, so all of our puzzle pieces fit.
Yeah. Because I learning to go from living by myself and being very, very happy with that,
and very particular about
everything, and then going into the house with 5 other people. I have struggled a lot over the last couple of years with that, but I've also grown a lot because it's having no roommates for so long prevented me from learning certain lessons and growing in ways that I didn't want to grow. Like, if you ask for patience, you don't just get patience, you get reasons to be patient.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about not taking things as personal. If someone doesn't squeeze the sponge out, like, that's not about Rebecca. That's about however they learned how to do the dishes. And so, that's funny, but it's true. It drives me crazy. So, just learning how to be more fluid with so many people.
Can I talk a bit about the sponge?
Oh, sure. Talk about the sponge.
Because the sponge is an easy thing to laugh about now, but it was a big, serious deal at the beginning. So when we
have so many of those, by the way. So we feel you.
And we're just 2 people living together.
No one is ever just any one thing. So you're not just
true.
So Rebecca grew up basically the middle child in the birth order, and in a household that was very particular about how things are cleaned and how things are put away afterwards. And then she moved into a group of people who all grew up feeling different things. Like, I don't like sponges for doing dishes. I would much rather have a wash rag. I've let that go.
Wash rag.
See, I feel that way about sponges. But so we would have these discussions, and you can see it, like it's coming back up. It's boiling up. But she would come into the bedroom on our nights just shaking, furious, because somebody not only didn't squeeze out the sponge, but they left it on the bottom of the sink. They left it in the bottom of the sink, and there was still some soap suds down there. Like, they didn't finish cleaning everything up. And I'd be like, but it was like somebody punched her sister.
Yeah.
And it was a very personal attack. They know this bothers me. Why are they still doing it? because most people don't think about sponges as much as you do.
No, I know they're just heathens.
Yeah.
Fine.
And you find your peace with it.
Okay.
Right?
You don't live like that. You do it. I'm just gonna throw it out and pull out a new sponge.
Exactly. We can do that. We're fortunate enough. So it was a learning point for both of us too, because I got to learn how to talk about some of these things that was always actually very natural to me. I grew up in the kind of household where nothing I wanted ever really happened. Like, that's a slight exaggeration, but not a huge one. My parents were teenagers when they had me. They made a lot of young, stupid choices because they were teenagers and in their 20s. So I grew up never expecting any of my wants or desires to be met, period, by anybody. And Rebecca grew up in the kind of household where if somebody didn't take care of the sponge right, it was handled like you did that to upset the person who was upset about it, right? So you were taught that was what you were taught, and you were taught that that's what it meant. And I was taught that nothing meant anything.
There's been a lot, and this goes beyond just David and I, but with like all 5 of us adults here, there has been a lot of like learning how each of us grew up and how that has translated into us as adults and how we clean things.
And the sponge thing helped me and her. It gave us a anchor point to learn language to talk about that.
Right.
I logically, rationally, I know it's not personal, but it feels personal. And maybe I need to address why it feels personal.
Yeah. It's opening up a can of worms that and giving you different language to talk about what's in the can.
So we would have arguments about sponges, but when it came to a big thing that was caused by the differences in how we grew up, we already had the language, and that ended up not being a fight.
Yeah.
That ended up us being, hey, let's just talk, and being able to just talk.
And I think I try to really put myself in other people's shoes so much, and living with 4 other adults. And all of us have had very, very different lives. I grew up in California. Jason was in England and Boston. David was everywhere in the country, and so was Christy. And so we all have very different ways that we moved through the world. And I really am grateful that I've been given this opportunity to be around so many other adults, because it makes us more resilient to other people, because we have to learn how to get along with each other in a house. We live together. We have a mortgage. So learning, if David's mannerisms this day is a little off, oh, he's probably feeling like this, I'm just going to give him space. You learn these little things about each other and kind of get a better understanding of how other people grew up in the world, that gives you more patience, I think. I feel like I've come a long way in the last 4 years of living with everybody, because I'm just so much more able to disconnect myself from what they're going through, or this sound, I can hear this noise when I'm in my bedroom, but I'm not pissed off by it, because they're just listening to a movie. Whereas when I lived by myself and I'd hear my neighbor's TV, I'd be like, what the fuck? They had turned that shit down. So I don't know, you build a resilience with living with other people that I don't think I would have had I not done that.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that out of everybody in the household, you probably would receive the Little League. It was the trophy for best most improved. But that's not accurate, because it isn't about improving, because that implies that you weren't up to par before. But I would say the most growth, because of how focused you've been on it, and more than anybody else in the house, and that includes me, you have challenged yourself and put yourself in constant positions that make you uncomfortable with the goal of growing.
Yeah.
And that's hard for anybody to do.
Yeah.
And you don't make it look hard.
Well, thank you.
So it's important that you recognize that too, because the sponge thing's funny, but the sponge thing is also a great marker for where you're at now.
Yes, I hardly ever get mad about the sponge.
Well, the good thing about a sponge is when you get pissed off and throw it, it just is a sponge.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy.
But it's already wet. And that's true,
That's because some ass didn't wring it out. That's the job.
Exactly. I do believe it is like a law of physics that in any sort of household that has multiple adults, if an adult goes up to a dirty dishwasher and opens it, they will rearrange at least 3 pieces in it because somebody put things in there wrong.
Yep.
I'm guilty of that all the time. I'll open up the dishwasher and be like, well, this whole thing needs to be refixed.
We need a new dishwasher.
What's fun is when you're like, oh, Brandy did this one.
Yeah.
Or David did this one. Like, now
You can call the person out.
we know who did which dishwasher because of how they put it in.
I love it. I think what's amazing about this, and David, you touched on it. Sorry, and David, you touched on it a few minutes ago. Was just that the sponge, it was almost a safe thing to, and I don't know the right word, like focus on. Right? It was a mark
to fight about.
Right, but it represented probably 100 different things in your partnership and or in each of your backgrounds and the way you grew. And so I will just say, I have had these moments where we're arguing about something and we'll be like, that's just like the sponge, right? This is just like the sponge. Yes, it's maybe it's bigger. It's not as little as a sponge, but it's just like the sponge. And then we can come back to it. You know, you can be in the middle of an argument and be like, oh shit, it's the sponge, right? And you have this, like you said, this marker to say, this is the pattern, and the pattern exists, whether it's the sponge, it's your car, it's your house, it's your job, it's your partnership. You do the same shit. And if you can recognize it when it's a stupid sponge in the sink and you can stop and think about it, it can be easier to stop and think about it when it's some massive thing as well. And so that really resonated. I just thought that was really
it's huge. That's absolutely one of the things we've done, and it's helped in all of my relationships, both romantic, platonic, professional. Learning that skill set just makes navigating the world of people easier.
And also, like, I've been working a lot this year and last year on like my anxiety, because I struggle with anxiety, most like everybody. And so, your anxiety lies to you constantly. It tells you to worry about things that you really shouldn't be worrying about. And the work that I've been doing in therapy with anxiety is also giving me the tools to communicate better with David on like, this is what's really going on. It's not really about the sponge this time. It's that I'm not feeling heard because I've asked people to move the sponge and no one's moving the sponge. So it's not about the sponge being in the sink. It's about not feeling heard. Mm-hmm. So like the work that I've been putting into like my own self therapy and stuff has been helping communicate the anxiety problems that I have. And I mean, like I said, David and I check in with each other on a daily basis. I'm like, how are you feeling? What do you want to do tonight after dinner? Because we tend to have the most time with each other right now. And so most nights it's David and I going to be together after dinner. So it's like, what are you needing? Do you need space? Do you not have a need? Are you just kind of up for whatever is going to happen?
And then I have to shift my brain into a different gear because I am one of the few humans who does not have to battle with generalized anxiety. So or maybe I do and I just go the exact opposite direction. I never think about the future. So she'll walk up to me like, so what do you want? What do you need tonight? And I'm like, it's only 4. I haven't thought about tonight yet.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to do.
That is.
Yeah, I've been thinking about tonight since last week. So if you could get your ass up to speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I feel like a lot of these times when me and Rebecca are talking to people about our relationship, it tends to focus on Rebecca's growth because I was the experienced person coming into it. But let me say, that has been one of the things that I have had to work really hard to learn, is that the shit that's important to other people needs to also be important to me. Just because I'm not worried about it doesn't mean I should just dismiss anybody else's worry. For one, they might actually have a legitimate worry that I haven't thought about because I haven't thought about it that hard.
What's really great is when Christy and I are like, oh, this will be an issue. And no one's worried about it. And then it comes up and we're like, yep, there's the issue. Christy and I are very similar on like the concerns that we have, but whatever, you know. But yeah, it's just...
But it's also been a good balance because of the anxiety. Rebecca and Christy are planners, and that's great because it makes me plan. And when you have multiple partners and you have a house and you have a job and you have a life you have to deal with, it's important to learn how to plan. Like, it's important to learn how to schedule. It's important to learn that you do need to be able to anticipate some things that might come along the way. Because, yeah, I can sit back most of the time and be like, we're in a pretty good spot that we can handle just about anything that shows up. But I'm not thinking about what that just about anything is.
Yeah.
They all.
Yeah. And thinking about the possibilities.
Well, I think this was a thought that came up a few minutes ago when you were saying Rebecca maybe was the one who kind of had to do the most growing to get to where you are. But there's a piece of this that it almost feels like the image I had in my brain was there's like a target and it's really amorphous where it is, right? Wherever it lands, you pick 5 people and we don't know exactly where the target's going to be, but everybody's going to have to change and grow in some way to reach the target, unless somehow the target sits on top of your head, which is unrealistic that any one person's going to be like, I'm the one everybody should strive to be like, but you're all figuring out where is the middle between 5 people.
Right.
And right, like you said, David, okay, it's important to be able to plan ahead and worry about these things. But right, what you bring is everybody else has to come to you sometimes and say, it's also important to like chill the fuck out and be okay not knowing what's going to happen in a week, that we do have
be okay.
Yeah, that we do have some semblance of security and safety, that if we missed a little bit here, we'll catch ourselves, we'll be okay. And so like it's everybody really coming to this middle ground between 5 different people. And I think that's what's amazing about what all of you are doing, as that work. And I think that's in any partnership, right? It's not, Emma, you come to my side or I go to your side. It's bring our baggage together. Where does our baggage live happily in life? In the storage room.
No, I agree. It's absolutely about because ultimately what we've found is our Voltron team, right? Like, we're all kind of experts in different spots. But when we're working together and we put all of our giant robot cats together, we get this really badass robot with a giant sword. And it works great because Christy and Rebecca I think they kind of serve the roles of the lookouts and the roles of let's go like pirate ship theme. So like one of them's up in the crow's nest looking out, and the other one's the fucking navigator, and they take turns on who's doing what, who are actually like plotting the destination and the course. And then you have me, Jason, and Brandy, who all bring our skills together to help us get there and to address anything that might pop up, whether it's something that one of us thought of in advance or isn't. And we've yet to hit anything that, when we are all regulated and on top of things, that we can't just address, can't just handle. And it's that diversity, is that differences between us, because Rebecca didn't need to grow the most out of everybody in the house. Rebecca has just grown the most out of everybody in the house, because that's what you've been focused on doing.
Sure. That is, yes.
Yeah. And that's not to take away from the growth that any of the rest of us have done.
Oh my gosh.
I have been 5 different people over these past 5 years. Everybody in this house.
Oh my gosh.
If I was going to be like, one of us has done the most self-growth work, it would be Rebecca.
I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But also, Rebecca, it'd be nice if these people could learn to wring out a sponge, so you didn't have
Isn't that something
We have done it.
Don't get it.
It helped when we got a really cute sponge holder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An automatic sponge, a Bluetooth sponge holder that you could operate from
See,
the bedroom.
You got to be creative about the solutions.
You know what? Exactly. Yeah. But it's
Amazing.
not just, it is amazing. Like, I think that, the 5 of us, I don't know. I tell David this a lot because I'm really trying to focus on, like, instead of being fearful of this house disappearing one day, and not the house literally, but more, the
home.
our home.
Mm-hmm.
I try so hard to just focus on how grateful I am that we're all here. And I tell David all the time that I choose this every day. I wake up and this is what I choose. This is what I want. Want to be in this house with everybody. Even when, all of us drive each other crazy in all the different ways. I drive everyone crazy. Jason does. David does. Like, we all have our personality traits that get just a little under the nerves of other people. And but I think a big thing is that we all choose us. We choose us. We choose this daily. And that's what makes me feel good about our household, is like, it never feels like a last resort for any of us.
Mm-hmm.
The only option.
No one's trapped.
I don't want anyone to feel trapped here, because this is about wanting to be together, wanting to live in this dynamic.
And it can be pretty miserable being around me when I'm menstruating. So,
we got 3 women in the house, and so shit happens. Like, sometimes we're all on the same like cycle at the same time, and that doesn't feel great. Or David is,
that's
Jason
the
is.
best scenarios, when they're all 3 on the same cycle.
That's the best scenario.
Yeah, because it's 1 week. Instead of 3 weeks.
Yeah. But I am constantly, on a daily, it's almost like a daily mantra. It's talking to myself about how much I am grateful for what we have, because it does feel very special. It does take a lot of work, but it's so fulfilling to get off work and I go out into the living room and Christy's in the kitchen doing whatever. Like, a lot of times we'll hang out before dinner and we're all just hanging out, chatting. Like, I never get tired of seeing these people.
It's fun work.
Yeah,
it's fun work. It can be hard at times, but it's almost always fun work. And then I feel like we've been really successful at upgrading our problems.
Yes.
And it's the guy talks about it a bit in the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is a fantastic flip on self-help books. It's still a self-help book. Mm-hmm. But it's, your life is always going to have problems. No matter what you do, there is no problemless life. So it is a goal in my life to just continuously improve my problems until they're problems I enjoy dealing with. And a great examples of like enjoying dealing with the problems are like people who love to work out at the gym, like who are 5 days or more at the gym. They enjoy the strain. They enjoy the sore. They enjoy all of those things that come with working out that hard. So they keep doing it and they succeed at it, right? I enjoy the problems that come with living with people like this. And I think that's the difference. I think that might be the defining factor between if you're monogamous or non-monogamous. The problems I run up against in a monogamous life, I don't enjoy at all, and then ended up ignoring and wasn't ethical. But finding an ethical way to live the life I wanted to live and then dealing with the problems that arise, living the life I want to live doesn't suck because I'm getting to deal with this. I'm getting to deal with how do I schedule 3 partners? Like, that's a headache, but it's a headache I want because I want all 3 partners.
Right. Versus you're fighting for something, solving problems for an end goal that you're not even really wanting.
Yeah.
Right. That's not super motivating.
No.
Like, why would you put work into that when you're like, this isn't even going to make me happy if I do it right?
Yeah. Famous musicians become famous musicians because they love the problems that they come across as a musician. They love the late hours. They love all of the travel and all of the stress and all of the risks that they're going through. So they succeed.
Yeah. Well, I will just say I'm grateful we get to bring you 2 back on for another talk soon, because I don't want to cut this short, but we've been almost 90 minutes into this. And
I know.
It feels like,
I have so many more questions.
it feels like it's been
We've
5.
gone 30 minutes over. It's
Next episode.
next
Be another episode.
Exactly. Well, before we do let you go tonight, knowing that you'll be back on with the 4 of you in a couple of weeks, is there anything that you want to shout out into the universe from where you're at today?
Yes, I do. I have a big one. And that is that I think I spent all of my 20s in a state of fear over changing my life, being fearful that I wouldn't land on my feet. And since meeting David and all of the choices we've made, we have all 5 of us landed on our feet every time. And I think that if you're thinking about changing your life, just pull the trigger and make the changes, because you only get one. And even if it's scary, I could never have told my 15-year-old self that this is where I would be and I would believe it. I'm so much happier now following the things that felt good for me, and making those big, terrifying changes were the best choices of my life. And I won't ever regret them, because every step has led me here. So the fear is worth it. Fear is where you know you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if this is the kind of life you're looking for, if this is the kind of thing you're running for, I would say, and this is a lesson I learned from Rebecca, and I don't think she realizes I learned it from her, because I learned it while saying the words to her, is the best way to go through growth and to know you're growing is that you're going to be uncomfortable. So you need to be able to find a way to be comfortable in discomfort, because growth comes with discomfort. Growth comes with doing things that are weird or new, or that stretches you in some way that you did not expect. And some of the most amazing things can come out of that. And if you do trip and fall on your face, which I have done many times, it's not the end of the world. That's part of it. And you might find something while you're down there on the ground, or you might get up and look up, and there will be the thing you were looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you both for everything you shared. And also, as you were talking, it occurred to me, we didn't talk about this tonight, but you 2 are going to be getting married.
Yes.
And yeah.
We're going to be getting married at the end of August next year, and it's going to be a dual wedding, because it's going to be me and Rebecca marrying, and Christy and Jason marrying, and we're still figuring out exactly how that's going to work.
It's hard because there's nothing on Pinterest for 2 poly couples getting married and then doing a 4-person hand fasting. It's
so
really hard.
We're making
right.
Christy and Jason, in some manner, are going, or we're going to get Brandy to officiate both couples now. See, we're not even sure how we're going to do it.
We're still working out the logistics, but it will be a unique wedding that no one has been to before.
Can't wait for you guys to be there.
Yeah.
We cannot wait.
We are stoked. It's on the calendar. We'll be there.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, more to come on the marriages. Because
yes. We'll talk about that with all 4 of you.
Yes, and the next time we bring you 2 back. So,
of course.
Absolutely.
Until then, you 2 have a wonderful evening, and we will talk soon.
Sounds
we
good.
Can't wait. So thank you for being here.
Wait.
Thank
Yay.
you so much.
Yay! And we're back. Thank you, Rebecca and David, for coming on. It was so lovely to talk with both of you and hear more about your story, your relationship, and we're just really grateful for this discussion.
Yeah. And we're grateful that we get to bring you back in just a couple of weeks to talk about your dynamic inside of the bigger dynamic, or all the dynamics.
All of it.
All of it. We get to bring everybody back, and we can't wait. So thank you, as Emma said.
A quick reminder that our next virtual speedfriending event is December 14th, 2024. If you happen to miss that one, don't worry, there'll be another one in January, but we just want to remind you of that date. You can sign up on our website on the events tab.
And a reminder, not that you haven't gotten 10 of them here, there's another interview next week with Christy and Jason. So that will be Christy from 2 weeks ago and Jason from many episodes ago, way back in the 40s.
Links to those episodes are in the show notes, by the way.
Links are definitely in the show notes. So you're going to want to check that out. And then in 2 weeks, we're bringing the whole group, the whole house, the whole polycule back together. And we can't wait for that. So we'll see you next week, and the week after, and the week after.
Yes.
All right.
I think that's it. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.